there, scientists. Caroline here. Let's play a quick game. I'm going to name a place, and then you quickly say the first animal that pops into your head. Ready? First up, the United States of America. Second, Yellowstone National Park. And finally, the Florida Everglades. What did you come up with? For me, I pictured the bald eagle, the gray wolf, and the American alligator. These are all iconic animals, but without intervention, each one could have disappeared from the wild in America. Fortunately, these species got help from wildlife protection strategies. Now they are making dramatic comebacks. In today's lesson, we'll explore different wildlife protection strategies, how they work, and how to use them most effectively. Ready, scientists? Let's get started. In our last lesson, we learned how human activities impact biodiversity. Do you remember what the largest threat to biodiversity is? Habitat loss, usually caused when humans change land to suit our needs. With this in mind, what do you think is a possible solution to protect biodiversity? If we can prevent habitats from being destroyed, we can also protect biodiversity. That's the idea behind protected areas, lands or waters set aside to limit harmful human activities and safeguard nature. These include areas like national parks, marine reserves, and wildlife sanctuaries. A famous example of a protected area is Yellowstone National Park. This breathtaking landscape is one of the only places in the lower 48 states where large predators like gray wolves and grizzly bears still roam freely across a vast protected ecosystem. These animals face hunting, habitat loss, and human conflict in areas beyond the park. But inside Yellowstone, they have the space and safety they need to survive and play their natural roles in the food web. Protected areas are often considered the gold standard of wildlife conservation. Why do you think this is? Pause and record your thoughts in your guided notes. Protected areas support not just a single species, but entire ecosystems, providing animals with the space they need to live, migrate, find food, and raise their young with minimal human interference. And protected areas don't just exist on land, they also exist in the ocean. Marine reserves are ocean areas where activities like fishing, drilling, and boating are limited or completely banned to help marine life recover. Protected areas work best when human land use and habitat destruction are a major threat to local wildlife, and species need large, undisturbed habitats to perform their ecological roles, like wolves on land or whales in the ocean. However, humans still need wildlife resources, and it isn't realistic for us to protect all wildlife habitats. Let's look at some other wildlife protection strategies in our toolkit. Aside from habitat loss, another major threat to biodiversity is overharvesting, taking too many wildlife resources too quickly. If a wild population becomes small enough, it may be considered endangered, which means it's at serious risk of going extinct or disappearing forever. This is where wildlife protection laws and regulations come in. For example, the Endangered Species Act makes it illegal to harm, hunt, or disturb listed species, like the bald eagle, and helps protect the habitats they depend on. You can think of the Endangered Species Act as a last line of defense for our most vulnerable species. But what about protecting species before they become endangered? We have a few solutions for this as well, one of which is hunting and fishing regulations. These are rules or limitations created to avoid overharvesting in the first place. Common types of regulations include seasons, where hunting or fishing is only allowed at certain times of year, like after the breeding season. Licenses and permits, where people must obtain permission or receive education before they can harvest wildlife. Bag limits, rules on how many animals a person can take. And size limits, protecting young animals by only allowing the harvest of adults. Scientists, can you think of a few animals that benefit from these kinds of regulations? You might have thought of species like deer, pheasant, or bass. With these examples in mind, in which kinds of situations do you think hunting and fishing regulations are most helpful? Pause and record your thoughts in your guided notes. Hunting and fishing regulations work best when people regularly harvest a species for food or recreation, and the population needs to be carefully managed. These rules allow for wildlife harvesting, but encourage people to harvest animals responsibly. Laws are also used to regulate and monitor wildlife trade, especially when it involves rare or endangered species. In some parts of the world, animals are captured and sold not just for their meat, but their body parts or even as exotic pets. This kind of trade, especially when done illegally, can cause species to disappear even faster than habitat loss or hunting. That's why international agreements like CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, were created. CITES is a global treaty signed by over 180 countries that helps prevent endangered animals and plants from being sold or transported illegally across borders. For example, elephant ivory, specific furs and feathers, and some exotic pets are banned from trade under CITES rules. Customs officers and wildlife enforcement agencies use these laws to stop poaching and protect endangered species. All of these wildlife protection laws, the Endangered Species Act, hunting and fishing regulations, and restrictions on wildlife trade, work best when over-harvesting is a major threat to biodiversity. By slowing down wildlife harvesting to sustainable levels, we can ensure that affected species will continue to thrive in the future. Wildlife protection laws are powerful tools, but they aren't perfect solutions. In many places, it's difficult to monitor illegal hunting or trade, especially in remote rainforests, wide open oceans, or across international borders. Even when strong laws exist, some wildlife is still harvested unsustainably. Luckily, consumer choices can help. Think of a product you've used or eaten that comes directly from the wild, not from a farm or a factory. Hint: it might come from a forest, a river, or the ocean. Got one in mind? Pause and record it in your guided notes. Maybe you thought of wood, fish, or even honey, mushrooms, or berries. Now, what if you could help protect nature just by choosing the most sustainable version of that product? Every time we shop, we make choices. Sustainable use of wild resources means using them in a way that meets human needs without harming ecosystems or pushing species toward extinction. One way consumers can support this is by looking for certification labels. These labels show that a product was harvested responsibly, using rules designed to protect the environment. This strategy is most useful for protecting wildlife that is used in everyday products, but it's up to consumers to make these certifications effective. For example, the Forest Stewardship Council, or FSC, can help you choose coffee, paper, or wood products that come from forests managed with care. Other labels, like the Marine Stewardship Council, MSC, certify seafood from well-managed fisheries. If you see the MSC label on a package of fish, you know it came from an operation that protects ocean ecosystems. By choosing certified, sustainable products, consumers like you become part of the solution, helping protect wild places, support healthy ecosystems, and reduce pressure on endangered species. And with that, we've wrapped up our lesson on wildlife protection solutions. Protected areas help species by preventing habitat loss. Wildlife protection laws help reduce overharvesting. And sustainable use certifications allow consumers to make more informed choices about everyday products. Whether it's setting aside protected land for wolves, regulating how many fish can be caught, or choosing sustainably harvested timber, each solution plays an important role. The goal is balance. using what we need without hurting nature's chance to recover and bounce back. In our next lesson, we'll explore two different kinds of threats to biodiversity: pollution and invasive species. Until then, I'm Caroline, and remember, this whole planet is one giant living web, and every species, including you, is a part of it. Even small actions can make a difference, so don't underestimate the impact you can have. Stay observant, keep asking questions, and I'll see you next time.
Hey, hey.